Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Chapter 7. Who Stole the Tarts? The King and Queen of Hearts were sitting on their thrones when Alice and the Griffon arrived. There was a great crowd of birds and animals, and all the pack of cards. Soldiers stood all around the Knife of Hearts, and near the king was the White Rabbit, with the trumpet in one hand. In the middle of the room there was a table, with a large plate of tarts on it. They looked good, thought Alice, who was feeling a little hungry. Then the White Rabbit called out loudly, "Silence! The trial of the Knife of Hearts will now begin." He took out a long piece of paper and read. "The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts, all on a summer day. The Knife of Hearts, he stole those tarts and took them all away." "Very good," said the king. "Call the first witness." Alice looked at the jury, who were now writing everything down. It was a very strange jury. Some of the jurymen were animals, and the others were birds. Then the White Rabbit blew his trumpet 3 times and called out, "First witness!" The first witness was Hatter. He came in with a teacup in one hand and a piece of bread and butter in the other hand. "I'm very sorry, Your Majesty," he said. "I was in the middle of tea when the trial began." "Take off your hat," the king said. "It isn't mine," said the Hatter. "Stolen!" "Write that down," the king said to the jury. "I keep hats to sell," explained the Hatter. "I don't have a hat myself. I'm a hatter." "Give your advice," said the king, "or we will cut your head off." The Hatter's face turned white. I'm a poor man, your Majesty," he began in a shaking voice. Just then Alice had strange feelings. After a minute or two she understood what it was. "Don't push like that," said the Dormouse, who was sitting next to her. "I'm nearly falling off my seat." "I'm very sorry," Alice said politely. "I'm getting bigger and taller, you see." "Well, you can't do that here," said the Dormouse crossly, and he got up and moved to another seat. The Hatter was still giving evidence, but nobody could understand a word of it. The king looked at the queen, and the queen looked at the executioner. The unhappy Hatter saw this and dropped his bread and butter. "I'm a poor man, your Majesty," he said again. "You're a very poor speaker," said the king. He turned to the White Rabbit. "Call the next witness," he said. The next witness was the Duchess cook, who spoke very angrily and said that she wouldn't give any evidence. The king looked worried and told the White Rabbit to call another witness. Alice watched while the White Rabbit looked at the names on his piece of paper. Then, to her great surprise, he called out loudly, "Alice!" "Here!" cried Alice, jumping to her feet. "What do you know about these tarts?" said the king. "Nothing," said Alice. The queen was looking hard at Alice. Now she said, "All people a mile high must leave the room." "I'm not a mile high," said Alice, "and I won't leave the room. I want to hear the evidence." "There is no more evidence," said the queen very quickly. "And now the jury will—" "Your Majesty," said the White Rabbit, jumping up in a great hurry, "we must find this letter. There is no name on it, but I think the Knife wrote it." No, I didn't, said the knife loudly. Read it to us, said the king. Where shall I begin, your majesty? asked the rabbit. Begin at the beginning, said the king, and go on until you get to the end. Then stop. Everybody listened very carefully while the white rabbit read these words. They tell me you have been to her, and talked of me to him. She thought I was a gardener, but I said I couldn't swim. He tells them that I have not gone. We know that this is true. If she decides to hurry on, what will they do to you? I gave her one, they gave him two. You gave us three or more. They all returned from him to you, but they were mine before. That's a very important piece of evidence, said the king. He looked very pleasant. Now the jury must... If anybody in the jury can explain that letter, said Alice. She wasn't afraid of anything now because she was much bigger than everybody in the room. I will give him sixpence. It's all nonsense. It doesn't mean anything. The jury busily wrote this down. She thinks it's all nonsense. All nonsense, huh? said the king. He read some of the words again. But said I couldn't swim. You can swim, can you? said the king to the knife. The knife's face was sad. Do I look like a swimmer? he said. And he didn't because he was made of paper. The king smiled. I understand everything now, he said. There are the tarts, and there is the knife of hearts, and now the jury must decide who the thief is. No, no, said the queen. Off with his head. The jury can say what it thinks later. What nonsense, said Alice loudly. The jury must decide first. You can't... Be quiet, said the queen. Her face turned red. I won't, said Alice. Off with her head, screamed the queen. Nobody moved. It doesn't matter what you say, said Alice. You're only a pack of cards. Then the pack of cards flew up into the sky and began to fall on Alice's face. She gave a little scream and woke up. She was laying next to her sister under the trees, and some leaves were falling on her face. Wake up, Alice, dear, said her sister. You've been asleep a long time. Oh, I've made a very curious dream, said Alice, and she told her sister all about the strange adventures in her wonderful dream.